Hey Bitstocks family, it's Krista here from the marketing team. So today we have a small favour to ask of you. Will you review us on Trustpilot? As you know, reviews are a huge part of how we look for quality products online nowadays, and it's no different for the world of Bitcoin. So if you've got an opinion about Gravity and you would like the rest of the world to know it, then why not share it with us on Trustpilot? You never know, you could be helping someone else make the decision to join our ever-growing community of customers. Simply head over to Trustpilot, search for Bitstocks, and leave us a review. Well, talk to you soon, and we hope you enjoy the podcast.
3, 2, 1, and we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Bitstocks Podcast. And I have a true veteran holding space with me today, none other than Eli Afram, CTO of a variety of different companies in the space, right? I think I'll allow you to give yourself an up-to-date introduction. Eli, who are you, what you've been up to, and welcome to the Bitstocks Podcast, brother.
Thanks, Michael. It's really good to be on your show after so long. I've been seeing a lot of podcasts every once in a while, and I know it's been a while coming. I'm glad to be here.
No, it's a pleasure having you.
And good to see you again, Michael. Last time I saw you was just over a year ago now.
Yeah, CoinGeek London, before the world went crazy.
So yes, world's gone crazy since. CTO Layer2 Technologies. I'd rather just say at the moment we're working on Amleh, the product, which the functional product has been developed. That's a gold-backed token platform that allows different companies, people to issue gold, both the fungible and non-fungible versions of that gold. So allowing them to tokenize that, and then it can be sold and traded and do whatever you want with it.
Interesting.
So there is that, but there's also the this other product I'm working on at the moment, which is you may have seen BVote around. That kind of ended up transforming and warping into something that I'm calling a non-survey, which is going to be an anonymous survey tool, similar to SurveyMonkey, but allows you to do surveys on chain. And what that's good for is the fact that it's publicly verifiable. How often we have polls, when they do campaigns and presidential kind of races and the polls in the lead up to an election, and you don't know.
You mean those very, very accurate polls that they do?
Those very accurate ones that you can never really publicly verify. Well, we're going to try to make those publicly verifiable, and I think that's going to hold some weight. Now, the interesting thing about this one, about a non-survey is it's one of those applications it's actually really, really close to being ready, market ready. Just putting the final touches on it at the moment. And the really good thing about it is the fact that it's not a BSV app in a traditional sense, in the sense that you need a Bitcoin wallet. It's actually going to be driven by credit cards and by PayPal. So it's going to actually be to the non-Bitcoin people, but the transaction is still going to happen on chain.
Nice.
And I think that's something that not a lot of people are doing, but it's super necessary if you want to get Bitcoin adoption, right?
That's the way forward, bro. That's the way forward. I mean, that's definitely the approach it is that we're taking with Gravity. I just want to make the plumbing so bloody invisible. I'm so tired of speaking about Bitcoin or which variant of Bitcoin. To be honest, I'm tired of talking about which variant of blockchain, to be quite frank.
Oh, exactly.
It's just plumbing and build applications that the mainstream needs, period. Someone wants to switch on a tap. Oh, water. It works.
It works.
That's it. As simple as that.
And the only thing I'm intending to say about this is, as far as Bitcoin goes, is to say that your results are recorded on chain. Well, not even on. I would say results are recorded immutably and are publicly verifiable using blockchain technology. You don't have to go into the nitty gritty because people don't care. A company doesn't care. I got this idea because one of the councils that I'm working in Melbourne, one of the councils, public sector, that were required to survey its constituents, its citizens. And they were looking for an anonymous survey tool, and that was when I got the idea that BVote should actually just be a survey tool, and you can do voting on it, you can do surveys on it, you can do polls on it, you can do whatever you want on it. you build the form, get the results, they get recorded on chain, they're publicly verifiable, all the statistics are graphed, all they're exportable, all that stuff, all the good stuff. And I think this is how we should start thinking. I'm all for. I mean, I love Handcash, and I love the fact that that they have an excellent SDK for. It was one of the things I was really weighing up. Do I make this a Handcash app, which requires then the user to have Handcash? But then I was thinking, in the case of this Melbourne-based council, if I had told them you need to download a Bitcoin wallet in order to use it, that may have been the point where they would have said, "Oh, okay, if it's going to be like that, maybe it's."
Yeah.
In fact, BVote kind of fell because of the fact that I said Bitcoin in there was a government agency that was looking at it, and the word Bitcoin threw them off. I was having a talk to Jimmy Nguyen at that time, President of Bitcoin Association, and when I told him about that conversation, he kind of nodded and agreed, like he'd heard it all before, because he's had similar experiences.
Loads.
And
he
said, yeah, we have there's a branding problem with Bitcoin, and it's not our fault. It's not our fault, right? Like we've been trying to do everything right. It's just that these people and these criminals got in there.
So who do you mean by these people and these criminals? So when you say it's not our fault, whose fault is it?
Well, who ruined the Bitcoin name? Silk Road, Blockstream.
Yeah.
Basically it's the enemies of CSW, really, isn't it? That gave Bitcoin a bad name. It was really the drug markets and everything illegal, because it was worse than drug markets. It was, there were assassination markets, let's face it.
Yeah.
There was.
Yeah.
I don't know if they were genuine. It could have been FBI posing as those. But the fact that they were advertised nonetheless it doesn't give a good reputation for something like this.
I think the Bitcoin as a tech has kind of been like a wildfire, right? And there are so many aspects that retrospectively we can sit back on and say, yep, we shouldn't have done this, we shouldn't have done this, shouldn't have done that. But I doubt we would have built anywhere remotely close to the momentum that we built up if some of these attributes weren't there. We always have this in terms of adoption, right? You have the nefarious actors tend to adopt new technologies first because it gives some degree of competitive edge that propels them and pushes them ahead until the rest of the curve catches up and realizes that they had some degree of competitive edge. What's funny about Bitcoin being adopted in that way is because it was so misunderstood that they didn't realize that it leaves an X marks the spot on all of the activities that they are doing, right? And I think what's interesting now with, I guess, the whole, I guess we could call it the CSW approach and the law approach. Although, yes, admittedly and agreeably, like Bitcoin being there to enforce property rights, very important, hyper important. And keys not being a way to enforce property rights, very important that is understood. But again, I can't say that we're not massively responsible. When I say we, I'm talking about the BSV community in terms of how we have positioned ourselves as a superior technology platform that's yet to really get much out the gates, but we spoke and speak as if we've completed it. And we are at the top, but we haven't really got the adoption. And we're not doing a great job at winning the rest of the space over because of the narrative that is coming at the top. So I think we are very responsible as a space for our shitty branding and our shitty position right now as well.
Well, I mean, as you know, it got a little bit of negative traction when Calvin said something like, we are going to, first he said, I'm going to rebrand to BSV blockchain, right? And now he didn't mean that we're not going to be Bitcoin SV anymore, but some people took it like that and it got a little bit heated in online discussions. But he clarified it later and he said, no, I'm not rebranding, because you can't literally rebrand something that is so integrated. I mean, he doesn't control that. But what he was, the way he put it, he said, "No, I am co-branding." Now he's completely welcome to co-brand. He can call it whatever he wants to call it, and calling it BSV blockchain is not actually wrong. It's quite right. But that's one of the things I mean. I mean the branding problem. BSV specifically has its own branding problems based on the attacks that it gets from the enemy that you've just kind of been getting into. But beyond that, Bitcoin itself has a branding problem. When I say Bitcoin, I mean anything that's called Bitcoin, whether it's BTC, BCH, or BSV, or whatever it might be. Selling Bitcoin as a platform to enterprise and governments is very, very, very difficult because of that reputation, because of that Silk Road thing, and because of that background of criminal anonymity that people thought it had, which you're right. I mean, BSV is not that. And we are on the back foot, and we are playing catch up now to the point where we have to, and we're a minority. That's the reality. We got to face it. We are small. We're not as big as we think we are. But, there's a guy in Australia, Rohan, this is to you, mate, but he's a BSV champion. He says something about Bitcoin SV that I really, really agree with. And he says that where we are right now, I mean, BSV is a platform to build on, and it's kind of, I believe, it's the second coming of the internet, where this will revolutionize the internet and it will develop into the metanet, which we talk about. But and when you look at it like that, you realize how early days this is. I mean, this is, again, credit to Rohan. It's not my words, but he puts it this way, that when was the internet invented? It was an ARPANET invention. I think it was like in the 1970s. And it took, maybe 25, 30 years until it started to spring into action, and for the World Wide Web to probably be born. And it's super early days. I mean, it's not going to take that long now, because now technology moves so much faster than it took then. It's not going to take 30 years, but it is going to take.
But I think we're very loose with this analogy, because I get it, and we're reinventing the internet. I get it, but we're also the internet is a combination of protocols, right? And the fact that they're stable allows us to have what we have. So the notion of us having a stable protocol, 1 billion%, right? Because the internet has proven how important stable protocols are. Yeah. However, the way that we interact, and I remember from back in the day when everyone used to get sent the genius AOL marketing strategy, they used to just post everyone an AOL disk, right? And I remember how prominent the www was, right? It's like in marketing everywhere, when the people were speaking about the internet, it was www, right? Go on a World Wide Web, and then it became internet, right? And we don't do that. Yeah. Like, we're not talking about, okay, just utilize this new metanet or utilize internet 2.0. We're talking about plumbing still. We're saying this protocol is more important than this protocol, and you're going to use this new internet because of this protocol. So that goes back to, I guess, 5 minutes ago. I'm using your own analogy now, and with what this Rohan guy seems to be saying, why shouldn't we consider a rebrand? I'm just playing devil's advocate here. Like, why shouldn't we reconsider a rebrand? Why are we so glued to the term Bitcoin, if really our game is to play and win the protocol and the technology game?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I think in the long haul, in the long game, I don't think it's going to matter that much, because the technology will, and it should win out in the end. Because if it doesn't, then there's something else that's wrong. But it's how can we help our, let's say, our salespeople, our entrepreneurs, our people who are creating things and trying to sell these to enterprise and to governments. What would help them? And I think in those cases, saying blockchain is more reputable than saying Bitcoin. Yeah. Unfortunately,
it's true. Very true.
I don't like that, but Yeah, but that's, I think, the reality. And that's, I've seen that because, you know, I've worked on a large number of infrastructure projects as a system developer across Australia, and in the last 5 years, I've been hearing a lot of people just say, what can we use that's out there? What about blockchain? They just throw that word out there. They don't even know what it means, but it's this word, it's this buzzword that they hear about, and they think it's going to solve this and that.
But that's where other technology has taken other tech within this blockchain space has taken advantage of that, right? Because the term that's getting thrown around is a very blanket term, blockchain.
It is.
Because it's being thrown around by people who it's not their expertise to understand how these things work. So when you have someone slot in, say, Ethereum chain, Cardano chain, I forget the one that everyone's building the NFT tech on as well. But you've got these different chains that all fit underneath the description of blockchain, with people who are not able to decipher or discern between a Ferrari blockchain and a Skoda blockchain, right? How the hell do they know? Because it's just blockchain.
Even worse than that. Like you're totally right with where you're going. Like it's it's even worse than that, because you look at MasterCard, and they say that their current payment platforms are backed by blockchain technology. And if you scratch that surface, it's a private blockchain.
Yeah.
Right. They have a private blockchain, and as we all know, a private blockchain is basically a database, and they probably spent millions of dollars putting that private blockchain together just so that they could sell on that buzzword that says we have blockchain technology, which it does absolutely nothing, no different. And this is when people say, "Oh, but it's got a few little quirks. It's more immutable and all that sort of stuff." You can hit delete on a private blockchain and then delete that entire blockchain. That's not immutable, because you can delete the whole blockchain. I mean, if let's say it's replicated across 3 servers, you decommission those servers, it's dead.
It's gone.
So it's again, the idea of a private blockchain is almost it's an oxymoron, because by the nature that blockchains are as defined in the white paper, they're supposed to be public so that nodes can join and exit at will, as described in the white paper.
Yeah. So what do you think to this recent debacle on BSV in relation to the double spend, Bitcoin Association's response to that double spend, and just the subsequent actions thereafter? I think this is a perfect example of our branding crisis and issue.
I got to be honest, the Bitcoin Association response, I skim read that. I didn't really get into it too much. I can't really comment on what the Bitcoin Association response was, that other than the fact that they want to hold the people who attempted to do the double spend, I guess, make them legally liable, and make an example of them, I guess, to deter others from trying the same. Which I think, I mean, hey, if you're gonna commit a criminal act, which it is, I mean, if you're gonna attack something, then you should be held accountable. I don't know the fine details. Maybe you can shed some light for me, Michael.
I mean, in a nutshell, it's pretty much that. I think what's interesting is the subsequent dominoes that fall afterwards. And this is where sometimes having a different tack that has shown a little bit of finesse perhaps goes a long way. I think definition of insanity is continuously doing the same thing and expecting a different outcome, and a different result. And we keep pushing the law narrative very aggressively. And I get it. And even in this use case, I could see where there could be an angle where you could be, all right, look, let's make an example. There was an attack on a network. Let's go down the legal route. But to what effect did the attack affect the users of the network?
Yeah. Would you agree that it was more of a social media attack than anything else? And an exchange attack. Like, I mean, so to my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong again, there was no real money stolen. Or was there? To my knowledge,
to my understanding, there's no inputs, no outputs, just money accumulating in a wallet without any inputs or outputs. So there. I mean, and you look at the fallout of what's happened. There's been a major social media campaign of people with all this FUD,
no exchange has said we've lost millions of dollars. If you remember when Bitcoin Gold was double spent, was it a year ago, maybe a little bit more? I think it was like 51 million or 54 million, whatever it was a really large number of millions of dollars that was double spent and stolen on Bitcoin Gold. And the fallout from that, what's happened with BSV is pales in comparison, because there was no large millions of dollars that people are screaming about. But at the same time, exchanges are running for cover, saying, we're going to block withdrawals, trading, deposits, BSV, and all this sort of stuff. And it's causing all this FUD and this fallout.
Because it's political. It's politically driven. And if you keep on dousing the flames with gasoline, you can't expect not to get burnt. And the strategy that gets played down the whole law route makes it so incredibly difficult for entrepreneurs in this space supporting the right tech on the right platform to breathe, right? Because you have limitations as to different avenues of capital sourcing. We surrendered, say, the avenues that all of the other spaces are thriving in. And they've got a whole ecosystem where they're just fueling new developers to build on their tech stacks, and they're funding these projects to do so. Now, however people feel about where the capital is coming from, say ICOs or the next variant of ICOs, the staking systems, all of these different things, however people feel about it, ultimately, it's creating a booming effect of developers building ultimately on the wrong platform, but they're still getting developers going off building and entrepreneurs testing ideas. We've created an environment which is quite void of oxygen in the room.
I hear you, Michael. I really do have law fatigue with all this, with everything that's gone on.
I think that's a good term. Law fatigue. I think that's a good term. I'm feeling it.
I really do. It's. I mean, Craig doesn't shy away from suing anyone and everyone.
Craig's got fucking $5 billion set aside just for the fun of doing this, and I get the strategy. But then, like, Calvin's got billions to go at it as well. They're playing a very different game with a whole space where, like, on the one side, you could, let's say, fund startups, etc. But on the other side, if your, say, overall strategies make it really difficult for those startups to exist, cool. You can understand that, and you can survive that environment. But it is a very different kettle of fish, the game that ultimately they're playing in comparison to the game that everyone else is playing within the BSV ecosystem. It just makes it difficult, more difficult than maybe it should be.
We've already lost. We've lost the cryptocurrency space, and I don't think we want them either. But part of the problem is a lot of potential BSVers that would have come to BSV, you're right, are going to these other chains. So the existing people, they're already a lost cause because they just don't have their head screwed on right, and they think small blocks are great, and you've already lost them if they've lost that much. But new people coming into it, it's so bizarre because Elon Musk says all the right things, you know. He made a comment recently about Lightning Network nodes being money transmitters. Did you see that?
Yeah, Elon.
And so it's like you're saying all the right stuff that you're echoing CSW on so much. And
Elon's a smart boy. He knows 2 and 2's 4. Elon's whole play was, in my opinion, to create a marketing exercise to highlight the green energy requirements in this industry. And he just so happens to operate in the renewable energy field. I think he just pumped it all up to just be like, yeah, they consume a lot of energy.
Then what was the Dogecoin thing about? Because I personally, unless he, I don't know, has he not looked at BSV? We've all been trying to tell him, but everything that he's been saying, we're going to scale Dogecoin, we're going to do this, we're going to do that.
It's a puppet.
It's already been done, and here it is over here. So I don't know what's missing from his thought process, because if there's nothing missing, then he is a scammer who is manipulating the market, which is, I think, very, very likely a case. What do you think?
Yeah, I think definitely there's a degree of that. I think he is on the roster of the status quo to play his role as well. So I definitely think there's a degree of acting that he has to do. But also, Elon is just a genius marketer, an absolute genius marketer. And he's just used this industry in order to further boost and raise his profile. I don't think it's the most healthy way of doing so because of the backlash. But ultimately,
he's created a lot of enemies.
He's got everyone talking about him. Everybody talking about him, and for a sustainable period of time. It's been months now, and everyone still continues to speak about him.
Well, they hate him because he really caused the. Even though the bubble of that BTC rally was going to burst on any news, he was the one that, he was the one that kind of. It was his news that caused it. As soon as he started talking negatively of it, it just kind of came down. And then the China news was, the nail in the coffin of that particular rally. But people see as and this is why this whole space is so dangerous, is because, I mean, if you're going to say something like that and you're going to cause people to lose money, some people did. Some people are stupid and they put their houses on Bitcoin, on BTC, and other coins. I mean, every coin got affected. Every digital currency got affected by what happened to BTC.
So how long have you professionally been in this space now? Because I remember, I recall seeing your name from at least 2015, 2016.
Yeah, 2015.
Times.
I'd say about that. They were fun days back then.
They were. They were simpler days, and the arguments. I guess the arguments were always heated.
They were very heated, but it's also...
But they were more fun. They were heated with like, okay, let's get ahead, right? They weren't heated necessarily so much in
they were heated, but it was still one chain.
Yeah.
And it was... there was that hope that we would steer the ship. And now, even though the vision of Bitcoin that we always wanted is alive in BSV, to get to this, we actually had to take a large number of steps back, didn't we?
Yeah.
I mean, now we have to rebuild almost from scratch. I mean, we did it once with BCH. And I'll tell you what, after the BCH split, it was like, again, we have to do this again. Because when we were in... there was a number of us in Australia, and when the BCH thing happened, it's like, great. When the BCH fork from BTC happened, it was like, we've got, we can do the whole merchant adoption all over again and show them that they can accept things for negligible cost and all this sort of stuff. And it was really kind of exciting again, and it was like there was a second chance. But as you know, when we split again, for all the reasons that it happened, you really couldn't go back to those merchants again and say, hey, remember when I told you that you could get, well, let me explain to you what, I mean, they're not interested in hearing that again. Especially when, they've already, you convince them to take on BCH. They're accepting payments on BCH for next to zero cost transactions. And then it's like, no, BSV is the real Bitcoin, and it's going to be more legally. It's too hard to push that one. So
it's embarrassing.
Rightly or wrongly, we're now going for enterprise adoption, which I totally think is. I think the merchant adoption experiment has turned into a failure. And we had one chance to do it. I believe that was with BTC in 2013, 2014, when people were selling coffee for Bitcoin. It was fantastic. But that opportunity is lost.
Yeah, we just need businesses building services, solutions that can't be done elsewhere.
Yeah.
And then make the whole plumbing of it invisible. And then before you know it, you've got a whole ecosystem utilizing this fuel that we call Bitcoin SV in order to power whatever services it is that they're using. But even them requiring the fuel, even knowing what fuel they need, I think needs to become pretty much invisible as well. It's like going down to the petrol station. like if I give my, say, partner my key, I change cars relatively often. If she's going down to the petrol station, I make sure she knows exactly what fuel needs to go into that car, right? Like, yo, this is diesel, don't fucking put petrol in there, right? Otherwise we have a problem. Even that, it needs to be to a point where it's like, it's invisible, where there's not even a full process on that. It's because you're just, say, utilizing this YouTube-like service that is built on top of this technology, and you know that you're paying by the second. That's stablecoin linked in with, say, your bank. You've just got a stream happening directly from your bank to this service. You don't even know that the reason why you can take 1 penny and break down the penny into multiple decimal places is because it's utilizing this rail that we call Bitcoin SV. That's gone. That's gone. Completely, utterly gone. It's just a stream, and you know that you need to utilize this amazing service that you don't really understand exactly how the service works, but you know there's other people who understand why that service is better than the traditional YouTube. So that's why you're there. And you're there because your favorite celebrity is there, and you want to glean content from that individual, right? Or your favorite social media influencer is there.
And this is where I've kind of come to a bit of a realization where the mantra of verify, don't trust, verify, it's there's some truth in it, but you can never take it 100% of the way, because like you say, you can't rely on people knowing the entire plumbing, because if you're going to verify, if you're going to really verify, to what extent do you verify?
Yep.
Let's say your wallet uses some sort of a JavaScript library, then you're going to verify that JavaScript library is legitimate and it's not doing anything quirky in the background. You're going to assess the ones and zeros of the entire thing. So, I mean, because as you know, we all stand on the backs of shoulders. Satoshi built Bitcoin and then layer. And normally we only go, even techie people, they'll go a couple of layers deep to verify this or that. Usually they'll verify via a hash or something like that, or whatever it might be. But at the end of the day, you can only go so deep in verify, and then it's economically unfeasible to verify beyond that layer. It's
I'll give you an example. Pre-pandemic, there's been so much discussion about data breaches, data privacy, how Facebook, Google, all of these companies harvest data from you. Your microphone in your phone is listening to you and then repurposing advertisement. Even if you switch it off, it's still listening to you. Alexa's listening to you. Your smart TV's listening to you. Everything's watching and listening to you, right? We've had all of these conversations. We've seen the evidence of these honeypots then being breached and your details that being sold online. Yeah. We've seen how much money all of these companies are making from your data. We know that our tech is spying on us, and there's a huge monetization model built around it. We know that, right? But we don't give a fuck because we don't know how it works, right? So as long as I deactivate, say, privacy settings on a couple of my applications on my iPhone, I think I'm doing a good job, right?
Right.
So it's only when we then have, say, pandemic, and now government's asking me to put something on my face, okay? Now some people have asked more questions because now I am physically impaired, right? Now I've got a physical symbol that's a good point you're raising. That says that I am being told to do something, or something right now is making me feel like my rights are being infringed upon because of this physical symbol, right? So now certain people are asking questions, certain people, not everyone, but enough people now start to ask questions because they have a symbol for the infringement on their privacy. On their rights, yeah. That's a very, very, very interesting point. I'm glad you brought that up because that is a reality. You're right. Our rights we've been dealing with censorship issues and privacy issues for a long time. It's similar to how I see, like, I personally see the greatest scam of our time, and we're all scammed through this,
is inflation and the ever printing. It's an invisible tax. Because and to put an analogy to what you just said, where people don't give a shit about this, but they give a shit about this. If taxes were raised 1%, I guarantee people would be marching in the streets saying, no, we want no more taxes, no more taxes. But print money, which does the exact same thing, and it's probably even much more than 1%, because, you know, inflation goes up, you know, it's 5% in the US at the moment. Print money, and everyone's okay with it because they don't see it. It's not this thing covering their face.
Exactly. And the principle of it is very simple. I mean, any new money that is minted needs to glean its value from somewhere. The only place it can glean its value from is the pre-existing money supply, right? And that's why it creates this dilution effect that we all have. But ultimately, if we think about what money is as a way of measuring human production, ultimately time, it's a time token, right?
Sorry, that's what blockchain was called. Satoshi first called Time-Chain, yes. So.
And I think, to be fair, I think we should reintroduce that notion.
I agree.
As a time chain and as a timestamping ledger, and that's the branding, and that's what we should be calling it.
Money is time.
Money is time. If there's 192 different ways of measuring time on the planet, I think that's the problem, right? But it would be a bigger problem if there was one way of measuring time on the planet, and that one way was this same system that you and I are discussing right now, where if I'm on this side of the table and I press the button to mint capital, I have zero cost of creation, right? So the knock-on effect, however, is it enforces the population to sell their skill and labor for a lesser rate of time, right?
Exactly.
So it's my time that's being robbed from me. Every single year I go to the supermarket, bread and eggs is more expensive. If I speak to a farmer and ask him or her, what have you done different this year? They'll tell you nothing, right? It's the time token in which their goods and services are being priced in, which is what's causing that effect that we call inflation when you go down to the supermarket. So Bitcoin, and this genuinely for me, I believe this is why Bitcoin is attacked at its core and has been by the status quo, is because if you've got a token, a unit of measure baked within this technology that we call a timestamping ledger, you are actually affording the world an opportunity to have a more harmonious representation of time on the planet, right? Now, the Satoshi unit is fucking like this and has been since inception. But if it starts to smooth out, what human beings have will be the most accurate representation of human production on the planet. That's not going to be an overnight thing, right?
No.
I think maybe 15 years, 20 years, right? But what we can do today is we can simulate that effect by taking government branded currency and tokenizing it on top of the chain. Yes. I mean, I'd actually like to hear a bit more about your gold project because gold is probably the best way of measuring time on the planet today, because it has a very uniform recognition of value around the world and a way of assessing the validity of its value around the world. But applying the tokenization aspect where we get rid of the Satoshi volatility, but we have a way of utilizing this timestamping ledger, which is a ring at the end of the day. And the benefit of it being a ring means any human being could pull up a chair to this ring and read and write from it, right? And that's what is amazing and what's powerful about this technology. But ultimately, this is a keeper of time. And the societal impact of that is why I feel genuinely the status quo is so threatened.
I 100%. Bitcoin's got so many enemies, and no doubt. I mean, it's come out already. There's been some leaks, some government documents that have leaked that have shown that they tried to stop it on one hand. They're trying to stop the proliferation of, anonymous or privacy-focused coins as well. And then I have no doubt either in my own mind that there are many state-sponsored cryptocurrencies as well that are designed to dilute the effect of Bitcoin as well. Yeah, they've created as if they. Why would Russia not create their own? Why would China not have created their own? And not just one. They've probably created numerous.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And they all attack BSV because BSV is the threat. I mean, we know that's not backed by government because it wouldn't be under this much attack if it was.
So talk to me about Amleh.
So this was originally we wanted to use tokenized, and for no reasons. It was nothing negative against tokenized themselves. It was purely a commercial contract, but we ended up going with Elas Digital, who ended up developing the product based on their
Brendan
on their
Lee,
own.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, yes, very smart guy.
So the majority, I was a part investor in the development of this application. The majority investment came from someone by the name of Bill Hattate, whose idea it actually was. Kind of that. I didn't even know this guy. He approached me and said, "I've got this idea to do this." I said, "Well, BSV is the best thing you can do it on." And then it just kind of, and then he put the money forward, and then I was kind of convinced as well to put a little bit in. So there are gold tokens at the moment on other blockchains, notably Ethereum. So one of our biggest gold vaults in Australia is called Perth Mint, which we would effectively, these guys would be a competitor to us. I was having a look through their product, and it's really interesting how they advertise their platform, their gold token platform. But they say things like, let me just pull it up, and I'm gonna read this. All right, so this is from their website. I'm reading it out. What are the fees associated with Perth Mint Gold Token, PMGT? Trovio, the guys who created this thing, does not charge any transaction storage or ongoing management. No fees. And then it's like they talk a little bit about that, and they say there are no fees for Perth Mint Gold Token. No storage fees or management fees. No redemption fees. No issue of keep reading. Then you get to the bottom. No PMGT transfer fee, in brackets. Note, Ethereum network charges gas. And I love how they tried to put that at the very end.
$300.
They tried to put that at the very end in brackets to really, but then, yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. Have a look at how much they are. And as you're looking at hundreds of dollars to transfer, and it's simply not workable. So that idea that they had, as great as it was, it just doesn't work. And so that's in our campaign so we're talking to 3 different vaults at the moment in Australia. I'm not going to say which ones they are, but at least a couple of them are notable. And that's what we're illustrating. The difference is just look how first we demonstrate the product. We show them that look how quickly I can transfer these gold tokens, which are not backed by anything because we haven't actually got a gold vault, but we demonstrate the speed of the token and obviously the money. But once we get them on board, they're going to have to pay for some of the legal stuff as well. So
so with dealing with the vault, because this is where I guess the most intimate part of this all is, because for instance, does the vault give you API feed, and how credible is that API feed? Because how often is the vault audited, right?
Yeah, that's right. Well, I've said from the start, I mean, I'd hate to be the first shitcoin on BSV. In fact, I don't want my face associated with anything that's going to be anything scammy. And it's one of the first things I tell all these different vaults, that when we start talking to them, I say, look,
I don't think the word scam even needs to come into this conversation. I think these are just real challenges that need to be overcome to pair up systems, right? Because with the stablecoin stuff is easier, but when it comes to a gold vault, I thought about this idea a lot. And if you guys have nailed it or on the cusp of nailing it, I'm rooting for you guys. But it's finding a vault that audits more efficiently, surely. Yeah.
Well, the auditing has to be done by a reputable agency that, one of the big 4, if you like, or whoever it might be. So what I'm really kind of hoping to have is for a biannual audit of the gold in reserves. And it has to be by a reputable organization. It can't just be some backyard mob that audits these and gives these give these papers out. So, and those audits, ideally, we should record them to the blockchain so that they're there as evidence and people can look through the history of all audits at any time. They're immutably there. So that's one thing. As for the integration, this is largely going to be dependent on. So even though the platform's been built and it's ready to kind of start playing with those tokens, there is going to be a requirement for development in terms of integration, because every system's going to have their own integration requirements. But we want to utilize their existing KYC. Systems, because we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We don't want to change. And this is what I keep saying to people. We don't want to reinvent. We don't want to change the way you do business. We just want to plug into it.
Yeah, that's the way.
That's what scares people when you tell them, oh, look, we're going to rip and replace everything that you do. And here, we're going to give you this whole brand new system and you have to learn how to do it and just trust us. It's legally compliant. No, we want to stick to their existing systems, and which they know are legally compliant, which they know are tried and tested, and then we just want to plug into them. So that's the avenue we're taking. Some things are going to be a little bit harder to plug into because of the nature of blockchain and the way business happens. We're going to try to natively go in that direction as much as possible. And then if there's any issues, we can solve those on a as needed basis. But
awesome.
But that's Amleh, and we just need to get that deal at the moment. So we're talking to different people. We've put money into it, so it's so there's no mincing of words. We put our money where our mouth was. The intention is that we're going to make a real go of this.
Nice. Well, right for you.
Never know if you never try, eh?
100%, always. Question for you: most significant moment that, if done differently, things would be different. What would you pin it down to?
Holy crap, that's a loaded question. There's been so much in the journey to Bitcoin. One thing that if it could have been done differently, where do you begin? Roger and CSW talk. Yeah. I don't know. There's so much. Was going with BCH in the original. Remember, CSW was originally talking about not splitting BTC, and he was originally all for using miner power to convince. Now, I really, really genuinely wonder, when we in 2017, when we started getting $50 BTC transaction fees, if BCH had not split then, would that $50 fee have created enough economical pressure to convince miners to raise the block size on BTC? I wonder. It's honestly like...
But there was so much cognitive dissonance back then that I guess you could argue the economic case of that being beneficial to miners, and it was beneficial to miners then. It was like, my cow is spitting out more valuable milk right now, and should we dilute it? Like, no, like I want my full fat milk, right? Because the miners were getting an incredible reward, not just from the block, but they were getting good rewards in terms of like the fee market being out of control.
Well, yeah, as you know, the miner reward surpassed the subsidy at one point, which Greg Maxwell said, wow, this is what I wanted all along, champagne. So
from an economic standpoint, you can see how they got caught up in all of that.
They got what they wanted.
But I remember having quite early conversations with Craig on this, and I was speaking about SegWit in particular. I did ask him, is it not possible to reclaim Bitcoin? I kind of like the conversation was like, it's like cancer in the body, right? Once it goes past a certain point, it's kind of like, it's done, right? And that was kind of Craig's sentiment around Bitcoin and reclaiming Bitcoin. Because of SegWit, a few other things that was going on, he thought it was just too far gone. The body's too far gone.
Yeah. I recall that. Yeah, it was far gone on one hand. They really, really did make a meal of that chain, didn't they? The unfortunate thing was we were at the mercy of Amory when BCH split, and he ended up being a real dog's breakfast to not just Craig, but to Roger as well. It was ironic, wasn't it? It was one of the most ironic things, I think. And I'm beginning to see Roger's just dropped off the face of the earth. He's probably had enough.
He's probably tired.
Do you blame him?
Yeah, he's probably tired. He's probably so tired.
He would be exhausted after everything he's been through, and I think we all are a bit. We're all a little bit tired.
I do think the Bitcoin Cash BSV split was a very unfortunate one. That just with a little bit better of decorum and discourse could have went down completely differently. At one point, Jihan was at the table, Roger was at the table. I do remember having conversations with the BSV powers that be around the time when Roger was pulling away. And what was being told to me was it was all about tokens. Roger just cares about tokens. And I think, and I still hold this statement today, I think for the most part, Roger just wanted some really good things for humanity. And I think kind of got lost in translation with it all, and emotions started to take over, which I really understand when you're in a room and Craig's probably going off at you. It's quite hard to think that maybe this isn't what it really is, because there's so much highly charged emotion.
It really was highly charged. I don't think there was. Look, I do also believe that Roger was in a difficult position because Craig basically attacked everyone in the industry. Of the cryptocurrency industry, and Roger had a lot of friends in the greater cryptocurrency industry, and it was like, he's and Rod. I know Roger did like Craig at the start, but he kind of put him in this straitjacket. It's like me or everyone else,
Yeah.
So that was tough.
There will only be one Highlander.
But I can't answer that question. What was one defining moment that he'd done differently? I mean, that obviously was a big one. But on the other hand, I don't think we would have had BSV where it is. I don't think we would, let's call it Bitcoin. I don't think we would have had Bitcoin where it is today in the restoration of the original, Bitcoin 1.0 in the full restoration of the original Bitcoin protocol. I don't think we would have gotten there under Amory or under anyone else. So I think what's happened, needed to happen, happened for the best. As frustratingly, if Satoshi never left, maybe it would have been the best. But look, let's talk about some good news. Have you noticed we've been hitting new all-time highs on BSV with transaction usage?
Yes. Yeah.
And we've got crypto fights to thank for that.
Yeah, they're smashing it out.
They've been pumping out a lot of transactions, and that's what I would call genuine usage, because it's obviously people are paying for these transactions. They're playing the game. Not the, I mean, I don't want to say the other transactions weren't genuine, but these are.
We're heading in the right direction.
These are enacted upon transaction by transaction, as opposed to I'm going to fund these group of transactions, as happens in Weather SV. And all credit to Weather SV, they've done incredibly well, and they really got the horse bolting on that. But I think Crypto Fights is probably the first, what I would call, enterprise model company that's kind of generating this many transactions. So, and this is just the start. So I think that's going to increase a lot.
100%.
Yeah,
they're a great couple of guys. I think I've got Adam on the podcast again soon.
Oh, nice.
To be honest, but it just goes to show. I think this is the direction that we need to go in. It's on us. It's on companies. It's on entrepreneurs to build cool stuff. Like Crypto Fights is a cool game. It's an application that when you're on it, you understand that this blockchain stuff makes this game better somehow, right?
Yeah.
And the whole NFT stuff, end of the day, Crypto Fights doesn't need to sell that. People have a very decent idea as to why NFTs are valuable. And it's kind of like Nintendo 64 of the Ready Player One world, right? That's what I find really excited about Crypto Fights. But it sets a precedent. Like, this is what we're going to need to do in order to get out the sludge and the muck, which is the branding thing. And when you play Crypto Fights, you don't think about the branding stuff, and no one else will think about the branding stuff. And hopefully that game and that experience just gets better and better and better and better. But this is why, like, for instance, with us, our whole approach with Gravity really is just make the bloody thing invisible. and give people a user experience that they can't get anywhere else, and prepare people for this metanet, this new internet world where them having ownership over their data, and having a bank that understands this new digital world and digital asset world, who can help strap you up like Ready Player One and send you on your way and say, look, whatever it is that you glean and you create or win, you can house it here, and we'll support you in doing so. But in terms of the experience, invisible, like literally invisible.
So there's another game on BSV that I'm very much looking forward to. It's called POW Chess, POW, Proof of Work. I think that's what it stands for. POW Chess, and it's basically on chess on chain where you can win if you beat people and so on. I'm in the beta for that. I've been playing because I absolutely love playing chess. Frustrates the crap out of me because it's a game of ego. So when you lose, it really hurts.
Especially if you're losing money too now.
Oh yeah, it's a double whammy.
That's going to double it up.
Not only are they smarter than me, but they
got
have
my
more money.
They got my bitcoins.
They got my Bitcoin.
Well, Eli, we got the 10-minute card well over 10 minutes ago, but I've really enjoyed catching up with you and hearing that you're working on so many things and involved the way that it is that you are. Amleh sounds very interesting. I'd love to keep in a loop about what it is that you guys are doing there. And once you do pin down like the whole liquidity provider and auditing process, I'd love just to hear more about that. That's something that's just very interesting for us too.
I'm happy to do a bit of a roadshow. As soon as we get Gold backing it, more than happy to jump back on the show and discuss all the good news about it. It's looking more likely that Anon survey will take off before that happens, but so I'll probably have something to say about that before then. But no, it's been a real pleasure, Michael.
So what's the best way for people to get in contact with you, Eli?
I guess
Justice Mate.
Justice Mate. That's my Twitter handle. You can reach me on eli.afram@gmail.com. This is my email if anyone wants to reach out. But if you have a gold vault and you're an established company and you'd like to check out the product, I'd love to show you and we can get talking.
Amazing. Well, Eli, thank you very much, brother. So to everyone, that concludes yet another episode of the Bitstocks Podcast. Hope you really enjoyed it. And as always, in traditional fashion, until the next time, peace, love, and light. All the best.
Cheers.
Hello, beautiful people. We are at the end of yet another podcast. And if you really enjoyed this one, you know the dealio. Please like, comment, subscribe. In fact, massively hit the comment section, hit the bell notification button. And a good, segue from this podcast would be the one that we done with Brendan Lee, and we discussed ELAS, token protocol. And failing that, our last podcast with Nathan Cropper is all things about law and compliance. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys the next time. Peace, love, and light.